So there's a movie that came out recently called The Bride. The Bride. In all caps with a exclamation mark. As a Maggie Gyllenhaal movie. And the immediate second I heard Maggie Gyllenhaal was the director of the movie, I was just like, I'm out. I'm not doing it. I anticipate this movie's going to be trash. I did not anticipate how trash it was until I started seeing the reviews, and now I'm glad I didn't go see it. So that way, I can, instead of talking about The Bride for the algorithm's sake, I would actually make a Resurrected Retros video about The Bride of Frankenstein, the 1935 classic, one of which I actually watched recently. And so this is my sort of appreciation for that film. And what I found interesting about it, and of course, spoilers in this, but it's a nearly 90-year-old movie. If you haven't seen it, like go to TCM or something. Like it's a well-known film, but there are some things about it that me being born in the late 90s didn't quite, there's a lot of misconceptions, right? People think that, me personally, I thought The Bride of Frankenstein was going to be about the Bride of Frankenstein, but in reality, the Bride of Frankenstein doesn't actually show up like herself as a character until the very end of the film. And I know I didn't make a review on the original 1930 classic or 1931 classic Frankenstein, but this movie is a direct sequel to that. And while the first one adapts the novel pretty close, from what I understand, from Mary Shelley, um, the second one's more of an extension. It's more like the EP extension drop. It's an extra added detail, and then more recent um, adaptations of the story, they kind of merge the two films together and make them a part of one singular canon. Um, and that's because, like, at the end of Frankenstein, uh, the monster goes back to try and kill Victor Frankenstein, who I think was, he had a different name in the movie. It wasn't Victor. It was like Edward or something. I can't remember. But and the mob comes after him and they burn down this windmill. And Frankenstein, we see in the sequel, he survives from the fire, right? And the mob is chasing him, and he's still kind of hiding as a fugitive, going around town, trying to defend himself from the mob and hiding from them because they want to all make him burn. He's a monster. Um, and essentially, he comes across this little cottage in the woods that is occupied by a blind man. And the blind man doesn't know what Frankenstein is. And so Frankenstein befriends him, and this blind man, teaches the monster. I keep saying Frankenstein. We all call him Frankenstein, but he's actually Frankenstein's monster. But you get what I'm saying. The monster befriends um, the blind man. The blind man teaches him how to talk. Shows him that smoking's good, food is good, and so this is where the monster wants companionship. And so he goes back to the doctor, who I'm blanking on it, and I don't want to take time out of this video to look it up. But he's not Victor. He was a different name. Um, and he wants to go back to the doctor so that he can create a companion for the monster. And that entire time, Frankenstein, the doctor Frankenstein, is with a different doctor, his mentor, who was, this was the bizarre part of the movie that I saw, is he was creating people, he was creating new life, very biblically, in a way. I can't remember if it was Prometheus or something. It was, I think it might have been Prometheus, was uh, the biblical or ancient mythology character that they were referring to. But essentially, he created life, but they were small people that he kept in jars, and that was kind of a comedic thing. And this movie was definitely more comedic than the previous one. The previous one was very serious, took on themes and tones of, like, the serious, dark, gothic horror, and it was, talking about the consequences of trying to play God. Essentially, that is the fundamental aspect of the Frankenstein story: is that, are we as humans, um, should we ethically try to play God? Because the consequences can be dire. Look at the monster. And so the original doctor, he didn't want to go through that experience again because he knew that it was wrong. It was an affront to nature to try and play God, to try and resurrect the dead. You know, stitching up a bunch of body pieces together to create a human being was grotesque. And we kind of overlook it now because Frankenstein is such a cartoonish character. He's such a part of our cultural zeitgeist that we overlook the horrific nature of his actual creation and the impossibility of it happening as well. And so to recreate that for a woman, where the mentor of Frankenstein, who I'm still blanking on his name, he went so far as to go grave digging and find female parts to try and create a bride for the monster. And the monster teams up with him in order to make it happen. And the cruel irony is that at the very end of the movie, so the majority of Bride of Frankenstein is more centered around the quarrels and the existential questions that I'm just going to call him Victor Frankenstein has, trying to like reason with doing this act again, creating life again, you know, like he did with the monster. And his mentor trying to talk him into it, basically, so that they can both team up to create a companion for their monster. And then the other half of the story, the B story, is the actual monster learning how to become more human, you know, talking, eating, taking care of this blind man, and becoming more human and becoming more able to connect with a human and being able to love and have a companion. And near the end of the film, they do exactly what they set out to do. They recreate life. They recreate the monster in this form of the bride, played by Elsa Lanchester. And the cruel irony is they bring her back to life, and she rejects the monster because he's too grotesque. He's too ugly. He's a monster. She wants nothing to do with him because when imagine you're being brought back to life, you know, from spare body parts, and then the first thing you see is Frankenstein's monster. You're gonna freak the fuck out too. You're gonna be like, what the fuck is that? And so this poor bride screams and runs away, and she rejects the monster. It's been a minute, and I probably ought to go back and rewatch the original movie. But that's what I remember, and I don't remember exactly how it ends, but I do remember that that was the main like twist at the end, and basically you don't need sequels from here on. Like that, those two movies were perfect as a unified canon, and so ever since then they've been in recent adaptations trying to make it seem like they were part of the same story. And I'm not 100% sure about that. I was under the impression, having not read Mary Shelley's novel, that the first movie was more faithful to the novel, basically. And even the beginning of The Bride of Frankenstein opens with Ella Lanchester basically telling the audience in this like meta canon, fourth wall breaking kind of way, with her two companions, who I also don't remember the names of, please forgive me, that she basically had a sequel for Frankenstein. They were asking her, how could such an innocent young woman, Mary Shelley, come up with such a grotesque and horrible idea as bringing life from the dead, or bringing life back from the dead using body parts like they did with the Frankenstein monster? And she just said, I don't know, I guess I'm just a weirdo like that. But here's a sequel. I have a sequel for y'all. And the two guys that were her companions were absolutely into it. So in a way, they were kind of telling us that The Bride of Frankenstein was not necessarily, within the novel and not part of the canon initially, but they were signed off by Mary Shelley herself, and therefore were used in the sequel. Again, this is just my speculation. I should do more research before I, let y'all believe any of the rumors that I say. So take what I say with a grain of salt. There are people who are have more expertise on it than I do. Just full disclosure there. But nonetheless, I highly recommend The Bride of Frankenstein, the 1935 original classic. It's just a good movie, and you see it sort of being adapted from into the new like not Peter Jackson. I was about to say Peter Jackson, Guillermo del Toro Frankenstein film on Netflix, which I will probably make a video for another day. But until then, if you're gonna watch a movie about Frankenstein and his bride, I suggest you watch just the original 1930s classics. And this is my Resurrected Retros video for that. And I'm only really doing it out of spite for Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride. Because I will never watch that movie, and neither should you. The fact that people are walking out of the movie is sad because nobody should have gone in to see it in the first place. So, let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see y'all in another video very soon.